massively over-leveraged. So if you look at their balance sheet, they owe more than $600 billion. They're spending about $20 billion a year right now on interest. That's eating up, a vast majority of their cash flow. And if interest rates go up, they will not be able to afford the interest on those debts. Frankly, General Electric should have gone bankrupt back in 2008. The only reason why they didn't was because the government guaranteed all of their debts. That guarantee is going to expire in 2011. It's going to be very interesting to see whether or not General Electric can afford the increasing costs of maintaining that amount of debt. The same general problem is happening across the economy, and the same general problem is bound to happen sooner or later to the U.S. government itself. You remember Geithner said that America would never, never, ever lose this AAA rating. I bet within 12 months that is no longer the case.
Well, the Chinese, British firms, European firms have been delisting the AAA rating in the last 3 months.
Yeah, it was listening to Geithner say that was the equivalent of listening to the Brazilian finance minister 20 years ago saying that the real would not be devalued. As soon as you heard him say it, you knew it was exactly what was going to happen the next day. And I know currency traders have made a lot of money just listening for Treasury Secretary to say such foolish things. The problem now is that it's our Treasury Secretary, it's our currency, and not only is it our currency, it's the world's currency. So this is going to be a much larger problem than just a simple devaluation of an emerging market.
Well, remember Geithner earlier this year told the Chinese economic students that we're not going to devalue the dollar. They knew that the United States was devaluing it globally at the time, so they laughed at him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's what Alex. The thing that boggles my mind about all this is if you listen to the video, and I know you have, just find something in there that isn't actually a fact or isn't actually just logic. If General Electric can't afford to maintain a $600 billion debt, it will have to go bankrupt. That's really bad news for our economy, and I wish it wasn't true. But guess what? Everyone has access to General Electric's balance sheet. It's a public company. You can go look at the numbers yourself. And explain to me how a company that's one of the largest in the United States, one of the largest in the world, explain to me how that company can operate in a way that's effective if the government of the United States has to guarantee its debt. Doesn't anyone see that this is a problem?
Well, let's talk about it from this angle. How do you see it unraveling? What do you see government's response to it being? And obviously we can try to protect ourselves individually if we see it ahead of the curve, and that's what your video deals with at endofamerica3.com. Again, that's endofamerica3.com, Porter. But, I mean, that's a lot of questions there, but just basically, how do you see it unraveling? It's already beginning to do it and accelerate that. What will government's response be from what we've seen them do around the world? What can we do individually? And is there any way to stop this on the large scale?
Alex, the second question I think is more interesting because the fact of the matter is it's already unraveling, and the way to protect yourself is really pretty simple. I go into details in the video, but it's real simple. You want to own energy, agriculture, and sound money. So you want to own, a farm would be great, or the equivalent. There's a lot of publicly listed farms. You can buy the stock of a farm. You want to own energy, that mostly means oil, and you want to own sound money, and that mostly means gold and silver. The how-to stuff is actually pretty simple. Unfortunately, my experience has been people won't take simple steps to protect themselves because they can't imagine the future changing as much as it's going to. I mean, you have to imagine. You have no idea how many times I got ridiculed, heckled at investment conferences when I warned that, Fannie and Freddie's balance sheet was unsustainable. And the numbers were clear to everybody, but no one could imagine a world where Fannie and Freddie became, bankrupt. And that's exactly what happened. The second question is there a way to stop it? And the answer is, of course there is. But the alternatives to stopping it are very painful. So we have two choices. We can either admit the problem and we can force our creditors to take a haircut, and that means essentially a form of bankruptcy and restructuring that would be very painful to our economy. There's no doubt about it. Or we can risk a hyperinflation by printing more money and allowing deadbeat borrowers to escape with a devalued currency. And the number two choice, the devaluation, is the political choice because the politicians will blame higher prices on entrepreneurs and businessmen. They won't accept the blame.
And they will loot within the hyperinflation because they get the money first. We need to go with the haircut and write off most of these debts that the banks created as derivatives. Do you agree with that statement?
It's real simple. If you go with the restructuring, the people who made the bad loans, they pay the price.
Yes.
Okay. If you don't, it's going to be the people who have been have had integrity and have lived with discipline.
That's right. I bet on gold and silver. I bet on a farm. I've got a family farm. I bet on that 12 years ago. I've been right. I shouldn't have to pay all these international bankers by destroying my currency and my future.
You're exactly right. And guess what? You're not going to get that choice because, believe me, they're going to make you pay through the nose. They're going to make you pay in ways you haven't even imagined yet.
They're now announcing rainwater taxes, traveling transponders in all cars, national sales taxes, VATs, carbon taxes. What are some of the other ways they're going to rape us?
Well, the big thing that they're going to do, and it's already on the books, it takes effect January 1st, 2013, is they're going to put a withholding tax on all money transfers that leave the United States. So they're going to make you pay a 30% withholding tax to move money to a bank outside the country. And if you want your money back, you have to file a claim, a tax return that shows that that money is not owed to the government.
Incredible.
It's incredible, and the only way really to even begin to pay for our debts is some kind of a massive wealth tax. So they're gonna they're already making you record if you buy gold or silver. They're gonna have that information somewhere. They're setting up to have the ability to tax not just your income but your assets.
But people are already revolting. I don't see them getting away with this, no matter how many neighborhood snitches they've got, and no matter how much brainwashing. I don't think people are going to put up with it.
I hope you're right, Alex, but I don't think so. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But you don't have to catch everybody to terrorize the whole country.
Look, there's no doubt when they got rid of Glass-Steagall 11 years ago, they accelerated setting up the snitch networks and the oppression. I mean, they premeditated this whole thing, and it's so diabolical.
Well, I don't know how organized they are in that regard, but certainly if you look at the incentives that they have been setting up, they have been structuring our economy to benefit the largest corporations in the government itself, and there is no doubt in my mind that that's going to continue.
It's outrageous, and now they're trying to pass laws to restrict family farms and trucking your own vegetables into town and selling them. I mean, this is becoming the Soviet Union. How do you, as you said, it's already really starting to move faster and faster. It's already rolling. But when do you, and I know you're not making an exact prediction here, but when do you see the real danger zones in the United States and worldwide for the final meltdown? We already see the Chinese and Russians 2 weeks ago announcing, hey, we're not going to trade with each other in dollars anymore. We see the Arabs moving that way. We see worldwide people not wanting dollars. So we already see the greenback going from king to being, almost like some type of toxic waste. So how do you see that move towards the exits accelerating? And will it be like other devaluations that, where people inside Mexico don't really know how devalued their dollar is or their peso until they leave the country? Or will this be different because it's the first global devaluation because it was all pegged to the dollar? And what will that cause worldwide?
Well, the question I would ask you in return is, people ask me this, well, when is it all going to start? The question I ask you in return is, what's it going to take for you to notice it's happening? How big does America's annual budget deficit have to get before you begin to question the solvency of the government? How much total debt can the economy hold before you begin to question whether or not it can be repaid? How high do the price of gold and silver have to go before you realize that something is already happening? How many new rules and restrictions on trade and capital and finance will have to be implemented before you finally realize that you're screwed?
Yeah, savers tend to just stick their money in an account and wait for something to happen, and then they can incrementally be fleeced. Well, I've got all these mainstream news articles, Porter, and I've been pointing this out for years. Now even Glenn Beck is doing it, did it last week. The military now admits they're preparing to suppress uprisings, and they have role players that scream, I'm an American, no, not the camp. They're already practicing taking over farms and nationalizing them. They're already acclimating everyone, and suddenly there's like checkpoints with cops and weird RVs with American flags flying with cops with cameras. They're putting telescreens in 9,000 retail stores with Homeland Security saying, watch your neighbor. And I have the Homeland Security press release right here. It's like they're trying to recreate the fictional 1984. So clearly the government knows what it's done. And so there's no doubt. I mean, there's literally, they're just acclimating us to a soft form of martial law with troops and paramilitary just scurrying around everywhere, getting ready. And I guess the troops and military have been brainwashed. They're going to go along with the total takedown of the republic from first world to third world.
Well, I think that you said it all when you first said the words Homeland Security. I mean, since when was America an empire that needed Homeland Security? I mean, where are we living? And these processes have gone on for a long time. The country's been going this way for a very, very long time. And I can't tell you about the social aspects of it, and I'm not really an expert in regards to the political aspects of it, but I am very, very confident that my analysis in regards to the economics of it is right. You can make all the laws and pass all the things that you want on these people, and you can fool them with advertising and get them to vote for almost anything. I mean, people are completely sheep. But you can't pay for it, because socialism will bankrupt you.
Yes.
That's just a fact of life.
Well, that's what Ron Paul has said, is that they're going to take over. We're going to have a police state, but it's going to bankrupt like the Soviet Union. But now, in this high-tech age, everything is accelerated. And so it won't take 50 years for the American empire, the American Soviet, to fall. It'll take 3-4 years. Do you agree with that?
Well, we are already so far in debt. It's unbelievable. I mean, most Americans don't really understand what these numbers mean. But, you know, our budget deficits are completely, totally out of control and unsustainable, and they're having a massive impact already on the value of our currency. And there is no consensus on either Republicans or the Democratic sides to merely pay for our existing government. Forget about beginning to pay for the largest debts ever accumulated in the history of mankind. So this is not going to last very long. I can assure you of that.
So you're talking about total implosion this next year.
Alex, as I would say to you, we're already in total implosion.
No, I agree with you, but I mean, when trains stop running on time, when gas doesn't come out into your stove, I mean, that's what they've done in every other country that they've fleeced like this. They suck it dry like a vampire, sucks a fat lady down and to a pile of ash. Specifically,
look, Alex, what's the difference between a commodity that's not available and a commodity that's not affordable? You're telling me that the American people's standard of living hasn't dropped precipitously in the last 2 years?
No, I mean, the word is accelerate, accelerate, accelerate. It's going to hell in a handbasket.
Right. I mean, so every single day you're getting poorer, but they're doing it in a way that is simply diabolical. Instead of honestly defaulting and making companies restructure, which would certainly lead to a lot of short-term, very painful problems, they're doing it in a way where everyone seems to think everything's fine, but meanwhile, the entire foundation of our society is being pulled out from underneath us. And you're going to wake up in 6 months' time, and you're going to go, what the heck, I'm 50% poorer, but my salary is larger.
Unbelievable. And this is the formula. This is the formula that they have used over and over again. But there does come a time when the world really completely dumps the dollar, and then we do see times where there are new, quote, crises. What type of crises do you see mixed into the stew?
Well, look, like I said, this has already begun. Last year, 2009, was the first year since 1971 that central banks were a net buyer of gold. Our trading partners are